Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show and who's Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, Indy's Trusted Servant is me, Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service and organizational culture. What makes Chick-fil-A, Southwest Airlines, and Nordstrom, for instance, to name three companies better than everybody else in the industry? They had great cultures and they kept them, and we talk about that a lot. I learned all of that from the hand of the master, my late father, Joel O'Malia, who built a great culture of service back in the mid-'60s at O'Malia Food Markets. But I even learned more from him as a youngster when he had a little store in Broad Ripple that he actually lost. And he came back 10 years later and started O'Malia Food Markets, and I learned from him never, ever, ever give up. And I learned a lot about culture even before the term was popular. He just used to say, this is what makes us who we are, instead of saying culture. At any rate, if you're interested in talking to me about my customer service trainings or keynote speaking, give me a call at 317-413-9062. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz? I like to describe it as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And today we have a local native of Indianapolis and small business person, Steve Sommer of, well, doggone it, I have to look again. What's the name of your company again?
It's new, Awning Partners Manufacturing Group.
Awning Partners Manufacturing Group. Now, you've been in the awning business for quite some time.
For 46 years.
46 years, but your company is new, and we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But tell everybody the Steve Sommer's story as fast as you can.
As fast as I can. Well, it actually starts my history of what I do. Starts back with my great-grandfather. He started his company back in 1923. That was Thorpe Awnings.
It was Thorpe Awnings. Now,
Yeah.
I remember that.
I remember that.
Yes.
Right? And that was my great-grandfather. And how he got started, him and my great-great-uncle, Ed Rosenberg, who made a lot of money selling land in Florida, came up here with money. And it was the beginning of World War I. And he came up with an idea to manufacture tents to go out to Fort Benjamin Harrison to sell to the troops, because there was no barracks there. So they had to sleep on the ground.
That is really interesting.
And so they'd go out there and they'd sew all night long, and they'd go out there during the day, and they'd come back, according to stories I heard from my grandmother and my grandfather. They'd literally come back every day, and their pockets would just be bulging with cash. And they'd go back and do it over and over and over again.
Tents. Okay, tents.
And that's where it really started. And then with that, my grandfather incorporated Thorpe Awnings at 26 in college, and the rest is history as it relates to my history as being in the awning industry.
Now, when did Thorpe Awnings start?
1923.
1923 with the tents.
With the tents,
Okay.
and then they evolved into awnings.
Well, where'd the name Thorpe come from?
Well, that's okay. That's my great-grandfather. He had one daughter, and her name was Avenel. She married Francis Sommer. He came into the business.
This is your grandfather? Okay.
He came into the business and subsequently took the business over. And then my father went into the business, and I went into the business for about 10 years, and then I go into why I left and what I did after that.
What you're doing now.
Yeah.
But where'd the name Thorpe come from?
Thorpe was my great-grandfather, Harry Thorpe.
Okay, that was the great-grandfather.
And my grandmother was actually Avenel Thorpe, and then became Avenel Sommer.
There you go. There you go.
There
Well,
you go.
I remember the Thorpe. When did the Thorpe Awning name disappear from Indianapolis?
It was about, I had started my company and doing a lot of things what I did. But anyway, he sold the company to an employee, and unfortunately, it didn't evolve. There was some issues internally.
Okay, but when did that name disappear? Would you say?
Probably 15 years ago.
15 years ago. Yeah. Okay. I remember the name very, very well. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself personally. You told me off camera that you went to School 59 in Broad Ripple, right?
School 59. I used to play pool at Mr. and Mrs. Q at 56 in Keystone.
that Brian cigarette machine has sparked a lot of memories here.
I went to School 59. I went to Brebeuf for 2 years. Went to Broad Ripple 2 years. I went to IU briefly for 2 years. college was not for me.
Okay.
I came out of college. I worked as a dishwasher and a clam shucker at Red Lobster, and worked as a bartender. I was one of the first people hired at TGI Fridays up at the Fashion Mall.
That was a,
A great place. I made a lot of money in there.
I can remember I was still teaching that, and it was 1974, 75 in that area. Everybody was raving about Fridays. It was a big deal in Indianapolis back then, right?
I waited tables, and I was just like my great grandfather. I'd come home every day, and I just have pockets of money.
You were a waiter, okay?
a waiter.
Yeah, and a lot of business lunches were had there,
lot of business
right?
lunches
And
and
I can remember going in there after a Pacer game, okay, and within a half an hour, half the Pacer team was in there, right?
Time, all the time.
Yeah, in the 70s, yeah. Cool. So then what?
So then I got into. I was hired as a salesman. A friend of my dad's partner, Dick Boyd, ran Shell Walker in town. You familiar with that? The office furniture people, Shell Walker Furniture.
No.
Anyway, and so they hired me. I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything, but I was a personal guy. They liked me and they hired me. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I really all I
You were in sales.
Sales. All I had to do was cold call. I'd cold call companies, and that's what
Just
I did.
business furniture.
To sell steel, business furniture, and fire files. And fire files was a big deal back then.
Did they still sell steel case?
Yes, steel case was a competitor.
Well, they were a competitor because we had steel case at our office at O'Malley's back in the day. Okay, same kind of stuff.
Same stuff.
Okay.
And so I was working for them. I worked for them for a couple of years. I ended up landing a pretty good sized account, Stokely Van Camp. It was on college. I cold called them. Ended up being a very nice, actually one of the largest accounts they had. And my father my father's partner, Bob Byers, got talking to my dad, and he was talking to his friend because they were members of the Rotary downtown, and he goes, hey, you know, your son's really kicking butt over here. You know, I don't know why he doesn't come work for you. And so one thing led to another. He called me and he said, you want to come work here? And I said, well, I don't know, I'm doing pretty good here. He goes, well, you want to know it's your family, blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay. He paid me $250 a week.
Wait a minute. Work where?
At Thorpe Awnings.
At Thorpe Awnings. Yeah. So you're back.
I'm at Thorpe Awnings this first time. The first time.
This is the first time you weren't in the family business at all till then. How old were you then?
I was 23. But if I regress, I wasn't in the family business. I grew up in the family business. I worked every summer in the back. I worked in making tents. I worked hanging tents. I worked in the takedown. I worked every Christmas doing inventory, counting nuts and bolts and everything. So
nuts and bolts, literally?
Every one.
Whoa.
For inventory. And washers and grommets. And
yeah, okay.
One at a time.
I like that.
Couldn't weigh them. Had to count them. And so, I knew what the business was about. I just didn't know how to sell it per se. So anyway, I came and I worked there, and I worked there for 10 years. I was approached during that time. I made some great friends with some other people that had started companies in the country. One was Lars DuPont, and he had started a retractable awning company. He was a Swede, and his good friend Eugene Delaplanque, who was a Frenchman, they were wanting to bring their acrylic fabric over to the United States, and they were looking for someone to be the national sales manager to sell their acrylic fabric to go up against what you would know Sombrella to be today, which is owned by Glen Raven Mills. And so they talked to me.
This is fabric for awnings.
Fabric for awnings. And they knew I had a lot of national associations with commercial customers with Thorpe. And so I went to work for them. They hired me, and I told my dad, hey, I got something else I want to try. And he's fine, and so we left.
He was fine with it.
Well, he's sort of fine.
Sort of fine is as good as it gets, probably.
It's
right?
As good as it got. There was some times of non-speaking. But anyway, I went to work for him, and I was a national sales manager. I had the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and I was the only guy. And I traveled so much. But in the meantime, I had a baby at home. We had 2 kids then. My wife was a flight attendant, and she was gone, and my mother-in-law was living with us. And after 2 years of that, I said, I just can't do it. I can't travel anymore.
That's tough.
It's crazy. Tough. It's killing me to hold myself. So anyway, I talked to Lars, my friend again. I said, hey, listen, I'd like to get back into the business. My dad he'd already hired someone to take my place, so I couldn't go back there. And so I said, hey, would you mind backing me to start my own business, which at the time we called Sommer Awning Company. And I literally started out of my living room. My garage was my plant. I'd take deliveries on 71st Street. The trucks would come up and pull
Are
up.
you still buying the thing from the same place?
I'm actually manufacturing.
You're manufacturing them now, okay, in your garage.
I started in my garage, and then I rented some space over on Winthrop from Gray Equipment. We had 2,000 square feet over there, and we'd get our deliveries of our steel over there. We literally we were what we call skinning awnings, and the place would flood, and we'd be standing in our hip boots putting awnings together. But anyway, it was a fun time. It's whatever it took, as you said, whatever it took. So
oh my gosh,
we grew. We moved out of there, and then I rented 5,000 square feet over on Binford Boulevard, the strip center there, and the company continued to grow to the point in 1996 we were an Inc. 500 company.
Really? Now this is still Thorpe.
This is Sommer Awning.
This is Sommer Awnings.
Sommer Awning Company.
Now,
yeah.
what you were manufacturing? What?
We were manufacturing awnings for. Typically, we had a lot of national accounts, and so we weren't really doing any local residential. We were doing local, maybe retail, end user stuff like for restaurants and so on and so forth. But
decorative awnings.
But our base of revenue was national accounts. We had TGI Fridays. We grew at the beginning of Fazoli's from 3 stores to 400 stores.
So you picture the awnings at a Fazoli's or a Fridays.
Those are all
That's
ours.
what we're talking about.
And we traveled all over the country. Okay. We were one of the few companies that traveled all over the country. We are completely vertical in nature. We did the site surveys. We did the engineering. We did the engineer drawings. Then we did the manufacturing, and our own men would go out and do an installation. So it's 100% vertical. We didn't outsource anything. And so after that.
This is what year? Late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s. I started a company in 91, 89, yeah, 91. Sommer Awning.
Sommer Awning. Okay, okay.
And this was the late 90s. We had a pretty big hiccup. We had we had an issue with the sheet metal workers union.
That's a hiccup.
That's a hiccup. And it was a youth movement. I won't go into detail, but it was something that they got into our company, and we didn't know how to talk to them, and my staff made accusations. They made threats. I mean, it was bad.
We had back at O'Malley Food Markets. We had 950 employees and 9 stores eventually, and we had to. Well, we were successful in keeping them out. Okay, yeah. But it took a lot of. Oh, it cost. You got to hire consultants.
I was eventually sued by the NLRB, and it was. I had to hire attorneys. It cost me $400,000, and I still lost. And so.
So is it a union shop?
No. What happened is I was the same person, this Lars DuPont, who he contacted me. He goes, a company just bought my company. It was the Chamberlain Group, which is the garage door opener people.
Okay.
They bought his company because he had retractable awnings, and they made a tubular awning, and they thought they could take their tubular awning and put it into his retractable awning, and it would be a great union for their product and to grow their business. And so he sold his company, and they're looking for a national company to acquire. To grow the commercial division of this Duracell company, and he asked if I'd be interested in selling it. And I go, well, based on where things are right now with the union, I'm thinking, well, yeah,
yeah.
And so with their attorneys, they went together and we put together a deal. They bought it. I didn't get any money for it. I kept my land and I kept part of the building. It just wasn't much, but I got a contract with them, and so I worked with them for about 2 to 3 years.
Now, at that point, how many employees did you have?
When they acquired me, I had like 35 employees.
35 employees.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then they
Now, is it unionized at this point?
no, they did not. They thought that they could shut down the operation and move it, and the union would like not notice it. Well, they did notice it. They actually, I sold the building. We moved the company over on 52nd Street. We leased from Faber B. Window. He had some space over
I
there.
know exactly where that is.
And we moved in there, and we moved everyone over there. And within 9 months, letters came about from the union saying, we know what you did, blah, blah, blah. We're going to follow you to the ends of the earth, and you're not going to get away from this. And so their attorneys tried to work something out with their attorneys at the NLRB, and it never worked out. And then 9/11 happened. And everything went to the crapper. They just said, we're done fighting this. We're done screwing around with this. We're shutting down the company. And
who's we?
Duracell, the company that bought me.
Okay.
They shut it down. So they fired everybody. We picked up all their IT. They drove off, and they gave me a contract to continue to work to handle the national accounts that I already had. So I was still employed, and I did that for
this is a vintage small biz story, by the way. Man.
And then we had I did that for 2 years, and then they said, hey, you want to buy us back out to get your name back? And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to. So we made a deal because I wanted to get back into the business, and so I bought my name back, and I brought in a partner, and we did that, and we once again we rented some manufacturing space, 5,000, started all over again, just like we did the first time, but this time we focused. It wasn't Sommer Awning. We created a new name. Sommer Awning was a local brand, but we wanted to have a national presence called Awning Partners, and that was a wholesale division to call specifically on sign companies that outsource their work to awning companies because they don't do it in-house. So these programs, we would take over programs like AT&T and Verizon, and we handle it.
So were you installing signs as well?
Well, no, we were just awnings, but the sign companies did not have the capacity. Most sign companies don't have the capacity to manufacture awnings. They don't.
Right, they're in the sign business.
They don't want to do anything about it. So they say, here, do you handle it?
Okay.
And so it was called Awning Partners. So we took 5,000 square feet there. It grew. Company grew. We ended up buying the building on 16th Street, the one we're in right now. We went from 5,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet.
Whereabouts is the building?
It's 16th and Gent. It's right in the 16th Tech area right now.
Okay.
It's right. You know where the AMP is? Where the AMP, the Life Sciences Corridor. It's Indiana Avenue and 16th Street.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought, near the old ballpark there.
Yeah. We're right. You know where the big silos are?
Yeah.
We're right just next to those.
Okay.
Anyway, so we bought this building. It was like the biggest building I've ever seen in my life. We looked at it. There's no way we're going to fill this up. And we did. The business continued to grow. Unfortunately, we had a little problem with my partner. We had some misappropriation of funds.
Well, these things happen.
IRS, and a lot of things happen. And a lot of things happened. It almost put the company. I mean, we almost went out of business.
What year was this taking
2009.
place? No, okay, we're getting
2009.
Getting close to the present time.
I had some fantastic support with my customers. They prepaid for jobs because we were on COD with everybody because checks had been bouncing and on and on. And
how many employees do you have by this time?
We had close to 50.
Okay.
Big payrolls. And a payroll was going to bounce. And one thing I am the most proud of, I've never missed a payroll in my whole life. If I had to borrow money, if I had to, whatever I did, I never missed a payroll. But it was bad. We had tax implications. And
by the way, speaking of payroll, one of the things that's wrong with the way things are going in this company is too many people in D.C. and even in Indiana have never had to sign a paycheck.
Or cover a paycheck.
There's nothing like signing a paycheck.
Nothing like having seen a payroll and see if you've got enough money in the account, and holding on to your own paychecks for months at a time, and it's all in all the time. It really is. So we worked through the state was fantastic. Mitch Daniels was our governor. God bless him.
I
mean, he actually what he did was just amazing. I mean, he actually personally helped me. And
That's great. You know, I just my one of my grandsons is a freshman at Purdue, and we went up there. I went up there for Dad's weekend with his dad, and I was stunned at how many of the undergraduates love Mitch Daniels.
it's great. When I was in college, I didn't even determine who's this guy. I didn't know who he was. Who knew the president?
He's beloved. Of course, he kept the tuition affordable. Right?
Yeah. But still,
yeah. So that's fantastic. That's just great local history. So keep going.
Anyway, and so we evolved out of that with the federal. I did we had probably $2 million in federal tax liens, and so we did what's called a certificate of discharge of liens. It's a whole process you have to go through. It's pretty intense. No one should ever have to go through it, but I know how to in case you need someone. So anyway, we went through that. We went to the state. We got reestablished our credit with people, and things were good. Then it keeps on going. Then I had a large customer in Dallas, U.S. Signs, and we were doing all the work for extra space storage, for public storage. We were doing the awnings, and we were doing the faces that go inside the pylon signs. We were doing that, just the fabric. We weren't actually doing the signage. Well, they contacted me and they said, "Hey, Steve, we could, you're doing this for us. We'd like to give the whole scope of the work to you as a wholesaler. Why don't you start manufacturing signs?" I said, "Well, how hard could it be?"
Oh, it's hard.
Let me tell you. $500,000 later, it was hard. We lost.
Well, as a company that purchased signs.
Oh,
man,
it's hard. It really.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it was skill sets that were way beyond, and the people I hired weren't up to it. We bought so much equipment. We did it for 5 years, and I'd get these purchase orders in like for $200,000-$300,000 per location. I'm thinking, I gotta be making money, And we lost money to the point where I finally said, "We're done." We fulfilled our last obligation. I said, "We're back in the awning business. We're done with signs." I just recently sold my last piece of equipment last week, and once I made that decision, things turned around. We got out of the hole, and profitability started again, and doing what we do best, and that's manufacture. And I call them awnings now because right now what we manufacture now is completely different than what we used to. We still do fabric awnings,
right?
But 80% of what we do is what we call architectural canopies now. Everything out of aluminum. These overhang, you see them with the tie rods hanging on the side of the building. It's on everywhere.
Can you give me an example of the kind of retail that I might see these on now?
Strip centers. Every strip center's got them on. You see them on Burger King. You see them on McDonald's. You see them on everything.
Okay, they're like awnings, but they're not fabric.
They're not fabric.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And they're flat, and they're just architectural
yeah.
structures. And right now what we do is we work off of 4 different platforms where we estimate from Building Connected Plan Hub. There's 3 or 4 of them, and we estimate our jobs in over 25 states, and those come into us on a regular basis. They're scrubbed for what the scope is going to be. Then they're set to estimating, and estimating sends out these plans. And it's just like you send them out to the general contractors. You don't know if you get they don't even know if they get to work. But if they get to work and if our number is good,
then you get to work.
We get to work.
So how many employees do you have presently?
We have 49.
49, all full time?
All full time.
All full time.
Yeah.
Good paying jobs, I take it. Mostly manufacturing.
Well, manufacturing. Our installers, we have 2 installation crews, and they travel all over the country. I'd say our guys make good money. I'd say our installers.
How many people are in an installation crew?
2.
2. Okay.
2, and they have a heavy duty truck that they drive, and they pull a 30-foot flatbed trailer. And then they travel all over, and they're usually gone for 3, 4, 5, 6 days at a time.
Yeah, I guess they would be.
We do our own with our own installers. We travel all the way up to the Rockies, maybe a little farther, but anything past the Rockies, if we have work that we have to do, we outsource. We have 2 or 3 good outsourced vendors we use for work that we do in the Washington area and the northern half of California, the southern half of California. We have some people. And
How far east do you go?
Oh, all the way.
And south?
All the way.
All the way. So
We go to Florida.
everything up to the Rockies, and then you subcontract that out.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And
Fascinating
we've been
stuff.
doing that now we've been doing it for forever, and so it's been the last 2 or 3 years have been really good. I have 3 sons, one of which is in the company. He's actually my oldest son right now. Well, he's always my oldest son.
Yeah, he always has been.
And he does a wonderful job. He's in charge of installation, and he also does he's in charge of all the estimating as well. And my wife is in the office with me. She was in advertising for. She worked for Indianapolis Monthly for years.
Oh, really?
She probably
Okay.
sold you ads, I'm sure, at some point in time.
Well, yeah, maybe.
And then she moved out of there, and she was offered a job in philanthropic sales for major donors, and she worked for a number of companies there, and then got sort of burned out on it. And she was thinking about retiring. I'm like, I don't know if we want to do that right now.
So very much a family business,
Very much,
which
yeah.
started in, again, 1923.
At 23, and then
Oh,
we
it's
evolved
morphed
to
a million times,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. And right now we have, you talked about the Awning Partners Manufacturing Group. We acquired a company in Ohio called American Awnings. We acquired another company called Commercial Awning Contractors. Also within this umbrella is Sommer Awning, which is the old tried and true company that still has name recognition locally. And
okay.
also Awning
Okay.
Partners, which is our wholesale division. So, and then American Awning handles, they project manage 8 states for us, and they have their staff over there, and then they
Gotcha.
work directly with us.
If somebody out there is looking for awnings on a commercial building, right?
Uh-huh.
How do they get a hold of you guys?
Email Steve at Sommer Awning, SOMMER, awning, AWNING, or Steve at awningpartners.com. One of the 2.
Okay.
And and if you want our website, actually, if you hit up any of those websites, www.Sommer Awning, www Awning Partners, www Commercial Awning Contractors, www American Awning, it'll all divert you to our brand new website, which is this website.
There you go. There you go.
Takes it all.
Fascinating story, Steve. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And
Pleasure.
good to meet you. And next week, our guest will be Paul Ainsley of the St. Vincent de Paul Society. It's a Catholic organization. They have a food pantry down at 30th and Keystone, and then they have a warehouse downtown where they distribute used furniture and appliances to the poor. And it's a great story. So don't fail to tune in next time on inspiresmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant for Paul Ainsley. And Steve, good to have you again.
Thank you. Thanks again.